Well, I think, as I mentioned before, each school has different resources, human resources. How many teachers do I have on my math team? How many science teachers? What are the paraprofessional roles? We use our paraprofessionals to support the learning and the interventions going on, much like they would in their own classroom. What are the physical resources? Library, computer labs, spaces that you may want to tap into. At our high school of 850 students, there really isn't any spaces that aren't being utilized during task, because we want to make it as small a student-to-teacher ratio as possible. So those are some things that each school has to look at and decide where, who, and how are we going to use our resources during this block.
Be certain that this is a multidisciplinary, across-the-board kind of effort. Brian has already mentioned that everybody participates in tasks, so it is not something that is only a guidance activity, only an academic activity, only, let's say, a technology activity. It's really that everybody comes together to support the student as a whole. So I think one of the biggest things that has to be answered is your staff ready to cooperate in a PLC like that? And if not, what are the factors that make that possible? We had, luckily, a lot of us go to PLC training before, so we kind of were familiar with the model.
PLC?
Professional Learning Community. So the fact that we were able to tap into that knowledge of PLCs and how they work, and then integrate that into the task file, I think was a very important element to its success.
Is in their thinking? Are they pretty much near the tipping point in terms of understanding that what may have been used in the past, whatever structural accommodations were used have been used in the past, they may have worked for a relatively small percentage of the population, but it's not good enough. And I think that all of the data demonstrates at this point that it's not good enough. And most professional educators, I think, are right at that tipping point where they're ready to commit to something, but they don't know how to commit to it because it's so structurally blocked. You know, we have a 4x4 schedule, or we have a traditional schedule, or we have, you know, we don't seem to have any room here, you know, because they're so concerned about coveting their time, you know, and they're not willing to give up 10 minutes per block to create this opportunity. When really it's right in front of them. That's what they have to do, you know. And are they willing to do that? Are they willing to, you know, forego the traditional notion of the teacher standing in front of a room, throwing stuff out, patting themselves on the back, saying, boy, I did a good job of that, not knowing really if the kid actually got it or not. Do they want that other opportunity to actually look a kid in the eyes and say, and recognize that, boy, this kid didn't get what I was teaching, and that, you know, that's an important reality to face for teachers.
Personally, it all depends on what's going on that week in my classes. I would book myself to whatever teachers need booking to, depending on if I had a test, but it also allows me to do other things. For example, for scheduling reasons this year, because I was taking AP courses, I couldn't take chorus, which is something I really love to do, but the opportunity of joining the female a cappella choir in the second semester allowed me to participate in the spring concert, and that was something I like to do. So I make time for that, and I also make time to maybe help out other students or to help myself when I need help to do that.
And I think I would say plant it and let it grow. You know, because you can create the circumstances, or you can create the environment where all of this interaction becomes dynamic and it starts to work upon itself. I think it's a good bet. I think it's a real good bet that you're going to get positive outcomes for the greatest proportion of students and teachers. There'll still be kids that are challenging, and you got to deal with that, but it gives you at least, again, a platform to address those issues with those kids instead of running around, trying to find them in this crazy schedule that never has any time to actually stop and breathe. So I would say, plant it and grow it.
And if I could, Joe, it almost sounds like you're saying that TASK just recognizes the realities that schools are dealing with.
Yeah, I think it puts a dynamic in place that can only bear fruit. I'm really into gardening.
Well, I have to go with the Thomas Kuhn's structure of scientific revolutions. I think that TASK is a paradigm shift, and if you're familiar with Kuhn's work, you know that a paradigm shift really requires a lot of different factors coming together, but also ultimately it's a leap of faith. So that people have to be ready for taking a risk, making a calculated decision as to whether or not this is worth it. But I can tell you from personal experience and also from the school, once the paradigm shift has occurred, it is almost as if we cannot think about the school day without TASK. So it's a very important addition to the day that we really, I don't think as a school, could really live without. So you have to be prepared for that. It's a major shift in thinking, as a true paradigm shift for everybody involved.
From a student perspective, when you realize that TASK is there for you and that it's really there to help you out and you should use it to the best of your ability because it's a gift, because most schools don't have it, then students will use it wisely.
I think most every public high school in the country is going to be dealing and is dealing with a transition to the Common Core. I think the shift that we've discussed away from covering large amounts of curriculum and material to going into more depth with critical skills for the 21st century is something that every principal and every teacher and every student, even though they may not know, is going to be transitioning into. This TASK intervention block gives every school a tool to be able to dig deeper with this transition. Without this tool, scrambling to try to find the time and resources to meet the needs of all students will be incredibly challenging. And the good news is, at Conval, through about a 2-year process, we've created this. There's a piece of technology to support the organization of this, which is critical. Without it, you simply can't implement, but it's now available. I would encourage every principal, every building leader to at least learn more about how they can use this tool to support their school. As we've said before, I don't know what we would do without it, and I'm excited that more and more schools, once they learn about TASK, are taking advantage of this opportunity.